one production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
Okay, it's 2 o'clock. We'd like to start on time.
Yo, we're starting.
Everybody is signed in on either the guest or the committee. Please silence your phones. And no one was, I yelled out last week, but I think some of you weren't paying attention. Maybe to turn it back on again.
I heard you.
Okay. We have a new staff reporter who's going to be working for the Sun City Independent. Her name is Kathleen Stinson, and she had wanted to attend their meetings. I sent her a text, and I was going to invite her via town hall because she isn't living here yet, but she never got back with me. So anyway, I think what she'll do is she'll watch the video and report off the video, so be on your best behavior.
This is very paranoid.
Would anyone like to, would you all like to introduce yourself? And I think, Susan, isn't there room? Can't we fit you in like
There's
here?
room here. Oh, you have somebody.
Okay.
Come on up.
Introduce yourself one more time, and then I guess I'm going to Jeff.
Okay, for a moment, let's talk about what our schedule's going to be like so that we can complete our project. So I'll ask our co-chair, Colin McAdam, to come up and talk to you about, the co-chairs have got together and talk about what activities need to get done to finish our project. So she'll run the schedule by. Thank you.
Use the microphone.
Yeah, microphone will help for this one.
Need more on strength there.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. All right, so this is a little short notice, but so we three co-chairs met and said, you know, we set ourselves a very, very ambitious deadline of wanting to be finished at the SAC on September 28th. Let me just read you what was in the resolution that was passed by the board at March 30th. The last sentence says, the work of this committee will be presented for member review and comment at the September 28, 2023 Board of Directors meeting with all data gathered by the committee. We fear that even though we have been meeting weekly since the middle of May, and congratulations to all of us for all the amount of work that has gone into this. I think we have made some real progress. We still don't think that, we think that we're going to be able to do what that sentence says. We will be able to present for member review and comment where we are at that point, although we don't really expect, since that's 2 weeks away, that we will be able to be presenting a final recommendation. So as an alternative to that, what we're looking at is the following. There are actually, including today, 6 Fridays before the October 26th board meeting. And we are needing to have a little bit more input, and very thanks to Marlene for being able to provide us with the key question is, what will this cost? And we need to be able to evaluate our different options also in terms of what they will cost us as an organization, and what we have set aside or what we have agreed is a reasonable amount of money to pay for those things. That's still coming, and I think we said that Marlene probably wouldn't be able to give us many numbers before September 29th, which is the day after that board meeting. So we're asking for a little bit of grace. We're willing to make a presentation on September 28th and say, this is where we are, this is what we're still waiting for, and we expect to be able to finish the work of this committee in time for the October 26th board meeting. So that means that we would continue meeting regularly on Fridays here in this room up until that time. Are there any questions? Norm?
What happens to the town hall?
That's a good question. There are 2 town halls scheduled prior to that. That is on October 4th and on October 18th, and I guess we could decide whether we would want to have town halls at that time based on whatever report we make on September 28th, or whether we want to bump those in order to allow them to come after the final. We never really discussed that as co-chairs, what the impact of this would be on town halls. What would you recommend?
Bump them back.
Bump them back?
We're just opening up another can of
I know
worms.
there's been a lot of publication already. We would just have to sort of beg forgiveness and say, we tried really, really hard for aiming at this date, but we just don't think that we can do a good job of presenting a final recommendation or recommendations at this point. So from what I hear, all the nodding heads, everybody pretty much agrees that we should just reschedule those 2 town halls. I think we can still do them during the month of November. I think there are 2 scheduled that are very close to one another in November, and we might be able to add 2 more. We also have on November 29th is the annual membership meeting, which of course is it's not quite the same thing as a town hall, but it is a chance for members to discuss whatever they would like to discuss, to bring forward motions, recommendations for change. All that can happen as well.
Would this be a positive thing for us to bump it back maybe a couple of weeks, because we have a large number of residents that do not live here year-round that do come back during October, November? This would give them an opportunity to have input into these meetings and not be out of town when we have these.
Right. Of course, when on October 26th, when the presentation is made, we're not expecting the board to make a decision right then. But I do think that there's some real benefit in us trying to make sure we get this done as quickly as we can. Everybody has said again and again and again and again, we have been waiting so long, let's just get this done. And so that's the reason why I would prefer for us to try to get this all wrapped up before the end of the year, including giving the chance that the board an opportunity to make a final decision about the recommendations. But the last meeting of the board is on December 14th, which in some ways feels like it's just around the corner, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you, Karen. So, as Karen mentioned, we got with those dates, what we want to do is allow the committee more time to work on requirements and fine-tune them over the next 2 weeks, which also allows our architect time to put together what these options are and what I'll call budgetary cost estimates. They're very high level because we have not developed specific building plans yet. That will come later. But the estimates will be sufficient enough that will give us enough information to compare and contrast ideas. And that's what we're hoping to do. So one of the, of course, the big things that we've continued to talk about is the auditorium that we have at Mountain View. Can it be remodeled to meet the requirements that we have as a community? Or to meet those requirements, do we have to build a separate building called a Performing Arts Center? So to continue that discussion, Marlene's going to get up now and share some ideas with us. Marlene?
Hi, everyone. So today, we were asked to come on a special visit because of the discussions you had about what are the trade-offs you're going to make in terms of primarily the performing arts facility that we can consider. I'm going to have Stacia start to do just a quick kind of recap of where we were, and then we'll get into some of the realities about the renovation versus the new construction.
So just again, so we're all on the same page. These are the priorities that were established as a group. At Mountain View, there was a requirement for an outdoor spa, keep the horseshoes, retain the mini golf, retain lawn bowling, make the fitness center at least 2 times the size. Pickleball, add at least, so there's 12 minimum, 14 is preferred. and 50% of that needed to be shaded and vented. For swimming, there was a requirement for a resort and aqua fitness pool and a lap sports pool and 2 tennis courts. The priorities for the community, location to be determined, is a performing arts center to seat a minimum of 300 seats. And then there was an option thrown out of a multi-purpose space. And keep in mind, this was from the first meeting just about Mountain View. Then when we got to Lakeview, the priority of, there became a couple options for the community that I'll get into after the Lakeview priorities, which were that it has a lake activity focus, has an outdoor spa for a minimum of 8 people, retain Hillside Park, retain the mini golf, retain the lawn bowling. The fitness center needed to be at least 2 times the existing size, upgrade the showers and restrooms, have a community space, have a general use swimming pool, create a visitor center, and repurpose the storage building if needed. So the priorities for the community then that were discussed were, again, the Performing Arts Center. So that site was TBD. And then as far as tennis and pickleball, it kind of depended on where they went. So if we retained 4 courts at Lakeview, then tennis was not required at Mountain View. And if we provided pickleball at Mountain View, it was not required at Lakeview. And then the lap and sports pool was only required at one site as well.
Okay, that's a summary. Do we have any kind of key comments on that overall? I want to put what we're doing in context, everybody. I know you've been working on this a long time, and so we have not. And this is a highly expedited effort to try to assist in the decision-making of your committee, challenged with a very important task, and to provide you some graphics to do so. So what we are showing right now is very preliminary and basically to allow for an evaluation of site use overall. That's very important that we're very clear on that, because this is not a design project right now. There has been no development of building designs. You know, we've only been on this project for 3.5 weeks about. So it is very, very expedited to try to help as much as we can quickly to you all to identify graphics and the actual facts that hopefully can help you decide, okay? So last week there was 2 things that I just want to clarify. Is that somebody else or is that me?
Somebody else.
Use your phone.
I think it's somebody on the meetings.
Just
Silence.
mute. There we go.
It is muted.
So-
The other 2. There's 3 people in.
And you guys let me know if somebody needs to talk, and I'm not looking, just let me know if somebody needs to talk, okay, guys? So here's the thing. So today, what I would like to know from last week, one of the things that we did not expect, but I need a little bit of clarity on, is that we talked about, we were told by one of you that the primary focus of this committee is on Mountain View, and that Lakeview is being considered primarily for a location for a new performing arts center. So we are going to show you today a preliminary study of how Lakeview could be expanded to provide appropriate spaces that we talked about. And what we'd like to know from you all, is that something that we should include in the investigation that we've done or not? You know, is that too early for that? So that's something that is really important for us to clarify today. After we go through this, do you want to see any of the evaluation of Lakeview potential overall use, or only for potential for a location of the Performing Arts Center? Is that something that we can clarify?
Only for the PAC.
She's talking about Lakeview. We still need to talk about Mountain View first.
Yes, I will.
Lakeview is a future project.
Yeah.
The only reason Lakeview's in it is because it was suggested that might be a site for a PAC, but we don't need to go into a whole lot of detail for the rest of Lakeview.
Okay, so then we will not. You're going to see a diagram that shows some items But here's the thing, what we've evaluated is that the Performing Arts Center can fit at Lakeview, and there is a great deal of the potential for major improvement at Lakeview, but that will not be part of what we submit as part of the committee study, because what I'm hearing is that really is not part of the decision-making. The decision-making is primarily at Mountain View.
Correct.
Did I get that correct?
Yep.
She's got me covered.
Can I ask a question?
Here we go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Marlene, I wasn't clear on that. It might just be the sound quality, but are you saying that if we are not going to prioritize anything but Mountain View, that you will not show us some of your ideas or suggestions for Lakeview, or you're only going to show us ideas for the PAC at Lakeview? Because I, for one, would like to know all that you have in the way of ideas for Lakeview. Even if they're future plans.
But is this the place
So
for
thank you,
that?
Steve. The issue that has come up is that if the committee is not really focused or tasked with decision-making on Lakeview, we were informed at the last meeting that that's not something that they're going to be taking direction on. And so I think that it's potentially very problematic to have that in a presentation that implies consensus and direction, especially your process of sharing this with everybody who lives in the Western US, right? Okay, and so part of that is my concern. I think that the committee already has those previous quick studies we did, but if this is not going to be a basis of decision, then it will be a basis of questions and I think issues that come fairly from people if it's perceived to be something that is a recommendation, which is not in fact a recommendation of the committee. And that is the reason why it's really important for me to get that clarity today. Does that make sense, Steve?
Still wondering, are you going to talk about a PAC at Lakeview?
Yes.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so then what we were quickly asked to do today, if you could go to the next slide, is to take a look at the overall use assignments for Mountain View. And so, let's see if I can turn this back on.
Is there any way you can enlarge that?
Yes.
Right there, yeah. Use the sidebar to move
That's not
it.
me.
There you go.
That's not me.
Oh, it's
She's
not
just
you.
trying to
Oh,
turn- She's just trying to turn on her.
who's doing that then?
Who's controlling it? Okay, thank you.
Kevin's
You want to
doing it.
point for me too? Okay, good. All right, now let's see if I can get this thing on.
Front button. There.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, so these are the items that wanted to be retained. I'm going to start with the simplest. The pool, as it is, can be retained, everybody, and still add a lap pool and a spa. So for right now, what we're showing is that that beautiful pool can remain. This is a lap pool, and the reason why it's in that direction is because when you're swimming laps, you don't want to go east-west. So ideally, you want to go north-south. So that's the only reason why it's oriented that way, folks. And then here's the exterior spa. Again, remember, this is not final. This is a fit test. This is just a study of your site. How can we show that the actual items that you want to do can fit diagrammatically on your property? The pickleball here is one more than minimum. And so this is 8 new courts, and it's shown to be designed to allow for a minimum of a shaded cover that is located so it can in the future be enclosed. So what that means is that the structure of this is separated enough so that it will not have to be made smaller in order to be a building. You guys don't have to care about that, but the key thing is that when you build buildings, you have to have separation and things like that. So that's what it's done. Yes.
Okay, so I'm just, these drawings, how preliminary are we talking? And how, are they still subject to change, or is this it?
There is no final design of anything on this project. We have been on this project for less than almost a month. So there is no building design, there is no survey. This is a very expedited site evaluation study to help you understand sizes and fit. That was the purpose. And I think that there's a lot here to show you, at least in terms of that, so you can make some decisions in terms of overall priorities. I think that was the intent. So even when we get to preliminary numbers later this month, those are just general budgetary overall numbers that'll give you area of magnitude. You can't assign it to a particular project in detail because nothing is designed yet. Yes?
The area west of the sports pool, that's where the picnic area is now or whatever.
Number 9.
Brought down
Yeah, left of letter.
Yeah.
Is that brought down to the level of the pool area, or is that the level of the parking lot?
We're thinking it gets got down to the level of the pool. So now, in terms of picnic area and things like that, what we're thinking is that obviously the mini golf remains, the lawn bowling remains. This is the area of the partial existing building, and what we're showing is there can be a major improvement to completely replace the existing restrooms and showers, etc. And that would be the majority of this existing building. And then we would build a second floor over it that could provide a very extensive shaded entryway and a shaded area at the pool side. So there could be a shaded entryway here where you can walk when you come in, and then a shaded area on this side on the pool. And then part of the idea is that this portion of that project could be dedicated to theater. And so it would not be the general storage and area for the recreation or workout area.
Is part of the resort pool shaded, or will be shaded at all?
It can be if you want to. We're not showing it right now. We're not in any of that kind of detail.
So with that lot, where would the entrance be for
the complex? Yeah. We're proposing the entrance be here.
Okay. So right where it is currently, pretty much.
It's close, but we're going to make it much better. Because right now it's kind of like just a gap, okay? Yeah. But the thing is that it's going to be a whole different area, and then the performing arts would still have an entrance here if you decide to keep it there, okay? And so what's really important is we did do a quick study of the performing arts. Again, this is not a building design, okay, but we studied the actual ability of that height, spatial area, and view corridors to the stage, and what could be accommodated. And right now this is 320 seats. What this allows for is step seating that's required to get some of the minimum view corridors. And then today, unlike many years ago, we do have to provide access to mid-level and back. This is very, very different in terms of how much room it takes than what things used to take. And so that area requirement is accommodated in that quick test we did on the number of seats that could be there quite simply. Then the area of the stage could be retained, but there could be major additions, which would be here, and that would allow for a variety of functions, including some backstage rehearsal space, some dressing areas, makeup rooms, things like that. And that would be additions on two sides. Now, these are right now sized to be about at the maximum that this building can be expanded under the current code without very significant changes to the building or to move the pickleball. Is that all right? Okay. So this is showing about as big as it can get within what the current occupancy is. You always don't have to care about this, but that is the reason why these are at this size right now, in addition to the fact that it's a fairly simple way to add to this building and still allow for the fire exiting that was required from the lower level of the auditorium. This also allows for a very significant increase in front end, potential lobby, and total major renovation of all restrooms and lobby, okay? This shows what the existing layout is, which is very constrained, and it's not really adequate for a really nice performing arts center. And so this new area here, we're thinking would be completely renovated for new restrooms, and then a lobby, and then the front end, even if you want a box office and things like that. This allows for that flexibility of those spaces to be added here. Right now, we understand that this is a potential use for exterior area. We haven't assigned anything there yet, but this can be, because right now, we can fit most of the things here, and so this is an additional area that has additional potential use, but it's not a required first phase development in order to do this. The other nice thing about that is when you do this kind of work on a site, you need a place to stage. And so that allows a staging area for construction, then you can decide all the great stuff you want to do with it.
So the part of the construction would be to remove what's existing there and leave it just empty, right?
That's what I suggest. Doesn't seem like a long-term qualitative thing. Okay, so let me repeat that this is not seen as a final resolved element. This is a very quick study of what could be accommodated within this space. Okay? Yes?
Do you have any estimate of the space added to the theater for the behind the scenes
The two
work?
wings,
Because that's most of what the theater is backstage areas.
And that extra rehearsal space, how big is that?
Any idea of how much square footage that is?
Yeah, almost 3,000, 2,600 square feet.
Just for the backstage?
Correct.
Do you have a placement drawing of what it would look like if we put a new building up, a new performing arts center on this site?
No.
Does that 2,600, is that split up on each,
It is.
Okay, so it's not all
Two sides. Correct. Yes.
So I have a question about the total amount of roofed space there. If 2, 1, and 7, 2 would mean a 2-story building, 1 being a single-story building, 7 being a building that would be enclosed, it looks to me like that would come to about 70,000 square feet of roofed space, and just quick calculations means 350 parking spaces. So all I know is that the Marinette Pavilion that has 8 pickleball courts in it is 30,000 square feet. So I'm just guessing that that's 30,000 square feet and the others are 15, 15, and 15 because you've got an upstairs and a downstairs. Just curious about the total number of square feet that we would be looking at of roofed space.
No, I looked at the square footage and we only needed 202. The pickleball is just over 19,000 square feet. So, and the new performing arts area would be about 22,000.
And what's currently existing?
Currently the performing arts and the...
I mean parking.
Oh, parking, you have 206, or more than that, actually. I'd have to look back for the exact number. I think it's 236, though. $254.
Thank you.
So right now, this is not a change in use, and so the existing uses will remain. And the requirements for the pickleball in terms of parking are not the same as those that are required for performing arts. Huh? Same?
They didn't all assemble.
Oh, okay.
We've been surprised by that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very surprised.
Other questions?
I know you have that drawn to the existing building and the existing capability. If we chose to remove that building, which may not be financially a good choice, but there would be room to expand toward 2, would there, and still build a larger facility in that location?
Yes. Yeah, you can remove all of 2. Yes.
In the theater building, I didn't catch, you said it was 320 seats or 2? What'd you say?
320.
320. And
seating and it's flat floor?
It is not. It is a sloped seating.
What's the rake on it?
It's not raked, it's stepped with an access walk. What is it, about?
6 feet total.
So
That's what they exist.
It's 6
So
feet
from
tall.
bottom to top?
6
So then-
feet.
6 feet?
So then what type of chairs would that accommodate? Would we be back in the folding chairs?
No, this
Raised
assumed
steps?
fixed seats. This is assuming a theater seating, yeah.
How many rows of seats?
What?
10.
Okay, so just remember, this is
Yeah.
12 rows, okay? So we did a couple of quick view tests. So, doing something steep is obviously nicer, but it's very, very problematic for today's requirements for access. With this number of seats, you still have to get a wheelchair in the middle, at the bottom, and at the top.
Or you could have an entrance from the middle.
Yes, you could, but there's other issues with that. So this is not, let me be clear, there's all kinds of different options that we could do with this. This is just a quick fit test to show you that the modification could provide for a stepped seating arrangement with fixed seats within that existing space.
There's a
Now-
lot of open space to the right of number 2.
Right, I was wondering about that too.
You mean here?
Yeah, what are we doing with that?
So right now, we thought that that would be like an exterior gathering space, places where people can do things, and you can put more building there if you want, but right now, it's not essential to be built on for what was asked for this initial priority.
Marlene, now, if you look at number 6, in the top left-hand corner, there's a little white triangle. Can you point it? See what I'm talking about?
Above us, by the park.
Right, yes,
There?
no, the little, yes. Right now, that is some seating. If people are not playing pickleball, there's some tables with umbrellas. It's not nearly big enough as right now for the amount of people we have waiting to play. If you do number 7, what kind of accommodations can be made? One for people who are waiting to sit, or if you want to get out of the shade, where to sit. And also, I believe number 4 is a restroom. There's a men's and a women's. We need more restroom capacity if you were to do what you're going to do there.
So we're doing a major restroom expansion here. There could be more restrooms here if you wanted to. It didn't seem like that was a priority for this initial phase, but of course that could be part of the future work also, absolutely. And then we could add some covered areas. Keep in mind, folks, I'm going to say this again, this is the way that I would recommend and we typically would work. So right now, we haven't really had any in-depth discussions about specifics of what is required. So typically, we would have in-depth discussion about every space. What's going to be in there? How many people? How many desks? How many this? All that stuff has been not done yet, just with the effort of, we were asked to do a very quick expedited fit test, that's it. So by no means am I telling you that we have everything figured out on this site. This was just, we went through kind of the big priorities to establish what's the essential stuff that we can show would fit. So you can at least establish at a high level what would be a potential commitment for this current improvement you're planning and budget for this particular site. So in my view, none of this is at all final. And if this helps you establish what a budget you might want to establish for this site, then the important thing is to start the actual design phase where we work through every single space, what's required, sizes, etc. And then we work to establish what is the trade-offs that are needed to get to the budget you establish. And I think before, there wasn't as much, I think there's been actually a lot of really good work by this committee to establish some of these priorities. So at least when we're looking at something, it's not the perception that everything's missed. We know that not every single thing is there, but at least it shows you that there could be a fit in this way. But it's definitely not a plan that anybody would say, okay, now let's go build. Does that make sense?
You talk about the process of getting more detail, exact detail, size of buildings, all that thing, which would be something done prior to the beginning of construction. What kind of timeline would that be?
So we're talking about establishing the program for the project and then doing the design for the project. And basic design for architecture and engineering for new construction usually has 3 phases: schematics, design development, and construction documents. You guys don't have to care about all that, but that's usually the phases that go. And the reason is, in schematic design, you're establishing before that, the program of every space. We will establish with you what is the actual use and requirements of every space that you want in this building. And that is important to do before you start drawing floor plans, because you can waste a lot of time on floor plans when you should really establish what specifically is in the space, what's actually required. We're not going to take a guess. That is not a lengthy process, but that takes, a month or so, depending on time commitments. And then schematics is where you establish the overall design approach to the project. Now, after schematic design, we highly recommend we do a professional cost estimate. It's really important that the cost estimate is done at early design, when we can make trade-offs with you and you can make adjustments before you have paid for the full architectural engineering fees, and you're at a point where not only is potentially the project over budget, but in fact it has to be redesigned.
Sure.
So we are very, very convinced, and always on all our projects, we do a professional cost estimate, schematic design, where we can all then have the basic information to make decisions on scope. After that, we then go to design development, where all the overall design decisions are made. You approve that, and then we finish the permit documents to submit to permit. That's construction documents. Those are the full drawings and specifications required to build the building and the site.
And that time frame is how long?
That's usually 6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months, okay. Thank you.
And it also depends on your decision-making time frame.
Sure. Well, add another year.
I mean, typically, we present it, and there's a decision within a week. I don't know what your process is going to be, if you're going to have 3 weeks of community meetings for every, I don't know.
I like the idea of seeing how we can repurpose what we currently have there. I think the only reservation that I can see right now, looking at the Performing Arts Center, is that rehearsal space wouldn't work because it's separated behind both sides of the stage there. I would almost rather see if we could somehow or other build into that green area right below and next to number 2, just so we have a dedicated rehearsal space.
And what are you thinking about the size that you would need for rehearsal space?
Well, I was just actually looking online. I mean, we'd have to look over with the players and see exactly what size. Ideally, I know we would love to have the exact same size stage, because we're going to be rehearsing there and then performing on the stage.
Yeah.
Most of the dance group wanted a stage 40 by 40, front and back, with a 10-foot apron.
So I'm just looking, I mean, the 2,500 is great, but that also has to include the dressing rooms, the bathrooms, all of that. So there would definitely not be enough space for the rehearsal room.
So the other thing that we consider very strongly is that the rehearsal room could be in this building. And it's very easy to put 2,000 square feet in that building.
Yeah, that I don't locate where it is. I mean,
and the nice thing about that is that it's flexible for other uses also.
How big is 2 right now? How many square feet is building 2?
And maybe while you're looking.
7,000. It's a nice size. Did you have any question on that?
So I just have a question about code. When you build an enclosed building, so looking at number 7, if it's not going to be enclosed now, but maybe at some later point, are there code requirements in terms of having bathrooms inside that building?
So there will have to be bathrooms nearby, they don't have to be inside. Like there's plenty of examples of campuses where there's restroom facilities, they don't have to be right next to the building or in the building.
Will you be coming back at all with estimated cost figures on remodeling versus building new performing arts center?
Yes.
And when?
So
2
that's
weeks?
in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah, we're actually not coming back until we do the board presentation.
I'm not sure we can make a decision what we want to do without those numbers.
No, I don't think you can either. We understand. And what this was not initially supposed to be a meeting. We were going to be working on the actual costs now and working towards the end of the month for a number. But we were asked to add this meeting with you because there was questions regarding the overall condition. And so I'm hoping that this is helping you to kind of see where we are.
Yes, we have talked about the entrance is going to be a 2. You said that's the main access and entrance point? Because we have to think about security then. Is that going to be the only entrance for the whole complex? Or are we going to still have entrances in the back parking lot also? You know, we're trying to get our access under control, and I'm not sure.
That's not resolved here. I mean, that will be resolved when we do the actual design. And we do not expect there to be one. Typically, that's very uncommon.
Right.
Even if it's totally secure, there's ways you can get in and out or unsecure certain areas. So we would never recommend just one way. But still, the entire perimeter could be secure.
Sure, and that's important. That's what I said for safety.
Do you have an area for staff for the equipment and the storage of all the cleaning supplies and machines and stuff?
So right now, there's some of that is anticipated to be here where all the lockers, showers, and restrooms are. So there would be a janitor's closet and equipment, things like that. But again, like this is not a detailed floor plan. We don't have a list of every space that's going in every building. This is an initial study of kind of overall use in the big scale. Because we have not discussed with you or evaluated specifically every single space and what is required within them. Yes.
So I have a question. You said that number 7 would you would anticipate it being a 19,000 square foot building at some point in the future. So the pavilion at Marinette has the same number of courts and is more than 50% larger than that is.
Yeah, it's got a lot of space.
So it's, 30,000 square feet as opposed to 19,000 square feet. And I'm just trying to imagine what that means in terms of the space between the courts and where people can sit, especially if that gets enclosed, that tiny little seating area that's up from the northwest side of 6, which hardly even serves the 7 courts that were there, obviously could not be used as a seating area for the 8 courts that are envisioned there.
Yeah, you need to find some space below 7, above the 1 maybe, instead of the Performing Arts Center having that as storage space. Maybe that could be chairs and shading and umbrellas for the tennis courts.
Yeah, but if the building is going to be enclosed at some point, Dave, it doesn't help if that's outside the building.
That's correct.
Well,
so if we're talking about spectator area, that's not included right now. Okay, if a spectator area is a requirement to make this work, then we would have to adjust the size of what can be there.
Okay, well, let's just clarify what we're not talking about people coming just to watch something going on. We're talking about the fact that a normal pickleball game lasts for 12 minutes. So when you finish, you get off the court because somebody's waiting to get on the court. You need to be in a place where you can sit and wait until your paddle comes up so that you can get on the next court. So these are they're really participants that are waiting to get on the courts.
Yeah, and there's a zone for that here that allows for that, and we can take a look at making that larger if you'd like, for sure. And then we can take a look at re-evaluating this area here, and maybe some of the other pickleball ends up getting moved over to here or something. If we need additional pickleball. Would that make sense?
I'm just concerned that, it's hard to imagine just looking at a drawing, but if somebody says to me it's going to have the same number of courts and be, 60%, only 60% of what we currently have, it concerns me simply, especially if we're talking about building walls around there, which means that we can't use exterior area as waiting areas. So that's just, yeah.
So this was based on the standards for pickleball that show what are the minimum kind of criteria for waiting around each court. So this wasn't an arbitrary layout here, but we can take a look at that and see if there's an additional area that would be beneficial to have.
Okay, and do you know whether those courts are designed by the 64 to 44 standard with fences in between or not?
Not necessarily fences, but for 64 to 44.
And how much space between the courts though? Because that's unique, we need to have fences between each of the courts.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
Which means that you need like 7 feet on each side of the fence before the court space actually begins.
So I sized it for the extra space around for competition level. Based on.
Okay, but
so in addition to that,
we want to have fences between.
So they want a fence between, they want 7 feet per side.
Yeah.
That's fine. So
Curious
here's,
about what you could fit in.
okay, so here's the thing, folks. This is a really good example of, again, what is going on right now is that these are very important criteria for you, okay, in terms of what you want for this particular space. And there's going to be similar criteria for everything else here, okay? And so let's say there's a zone here, and we'll evaluate the clearances to get the 7 feet, et cetera. I think that's why we have to get into, detailed discussions for each one of these things, because that's not always the criteria for pickleball. It's very important for you. We'll take a look at it, but that'll apply to many of the things that are here. I think the key thing here is that if we have a zone for pickleball right here, it may be that even the orientation of this, for instance, has to change to allow for what you're talking about. And then maybe that we have to allow for a potential additional area for pickleball, which I was hoping we would not have to do because it would be nice to have them all in one zone, okay? And then, there might be an idea that some of these areas get modified too, and that the lawn bowling, gets adjusted or relocated. Yes?
Yeah, we're re-emphasize the word you used in the beginning, which was preliminary. And to get down into the weeds like we are now, on sizes of this, sizes of that, I think is way premature. I think what we're looking at now is a concept. We've got room in that green area to change things. We've got room in that solar area to change things. There's a lot of manipulation that can go into this. But to get down into the details when we're talking about something that's preliminary, I don't think is going to be productive. I think we just need to go ahead with the preliminary concepts.
Please.
Okay, so one last thing regarding the performing arts I'd like to be clear about. Do you want to bring up the section?
Marlene,
Steve. Oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
No, I was going to get into some specifics, trying to address both the pickleball space area as well as the Performing Arts Center backstage and the, as Norm just mentioned, the solar panel area that's not being utilized. So, but if we're not going to get into any ideas in that regard, I'll stop raising my hand.
Okay.
John? Can we get a copy of this so that all the members can look at this at home and move things around and see what's possible?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Ryan, if you send that to me, I'll make sure everyone gets it.
Okay, one last thing regarding performing arts. I just want to be clear that the overall height to the bottom of roof is
19.
okay, it's a little bit under 20 feet. So right now, it's not a full fly height, it's a partial fly height, just it depends on whether you go above 20 feet with your fly. So right now, we're assuming total major renovation for all the acoustics and the ceilings and everything and the materials in there. But I just want to let you know that that is, right now, that's about the limit in terms of the ceiling height within there.
When you're talking renovation, excuse me, I should raise my hand. When you're talking renovation, are you talking, what are you going to leave in that building? The outside walls or?
Yeah, we're gonna leave the structure and the outside walls, but we are going to move, we're gonna make openings in outside walls, we're gonna connect them, but the fundamentals of the structure and the roof would remain, and the floor.
Per the flies, we had kind of, as a committee, just agreed that they could have a note that the fly was an optional thing. We could eliminate that from the theater, the fly capability. But they are looking at having the ability to have like a blue screen capability.
That you can do.
You're leaving the floor, but you're making the floor sway.
Okay, so I knew I shouldn't have said that as soon as I said that. So the concrete slab is remaining, we can build over it to do the new floor that's required for the city. And let me just say that there's very, very significant savings by, reusing that. There is a lot we can do. Our acoustic consultant that I mentioned before is really one of the best in the country. And so what he can do to help you in terms of the performance of this space, in terms of how it actually works for the audience, is very, very significant. So don't take what you have right now in terms of how it's done and assume that's the way it's going to stay. All that comes out. That is all being removed. That is my recommendation, actually. I shouldn't say it is. It's assumed that it would be replaced so that it's a much better performing acoustic space. Okay? Any other questions on this? Okay, do you want to quickly show the next slide? This is a little bit closer so you can see a little bit of the scale, folks. Pretty nice in terms of how we can get the seating in, actually, in terms of the overall. And this shows the trade-offs and what we have to do to get the various levels in there. Don't look at this detail. It's just a quick test because, Stacia, I wanted to make sure, in fact, when we talk about the number of seats, that it allows for the required ramping, access, and wheelchair locations, okay? That's it. Next. And then Lakeview, we're gonna not talk about anything at Lakeview except the potential location of the Performing Arts Center, which is right here. Here's a couple reasons why we're showing in that location. Number one, obviously, it's in a public corner. We can make a modification with the existing parking with a drop-off lane that could be quite nice for the front entry. And then we can expand parking if needed next to it. This can be, a different shape also. And then it would still allow for this primary viewpoint and this building to remain there as kind of the main connection to the water. And then any additions and modifications we want to do to that building. And so right now, I'm not going to go into that, correct? Because all we're looking at here is potential for a location for the performing arts. And what's important about this, everybody, is that, in fact, the actual location of this, except for putting it over this building, right, will not affect right now the potential cost of it. So even if you say, well, I just want to look at alternate locations, I think that's always a good part of the actual design phase of work. Once we would get through all the details of what specifically you want in that building, it may be that we recommend to you that it goes in a different place. That is not critical right now, in my opinion, from what I've heard about Lakeview. What's critical is that, is there enough potential on Lakeview to put a new performing arts building there? The answer is yes. So that's the key. Whether it's actually exactly here, somewhere else, as long as it's not over this building, okay? And we can determine a way that I would recommend we not have to redo the zoning for the commercial. But that's always a possibility if we have to, right? And the key thing is, we've shown that there is room on here to put that there. There is room for the appropriate parking that's needed. You don't have to build a parking structure, by the way, okay? And so that would be the key element that we're showing you. There is that option if at some point you want to build a new center at Lakeview. And then my understanding is that we're not going to show anything else on this site, correct? Okay.
There is some concern about putting it, I mean, I'm all for utilizing the Lakeview, but the hospital is right there. So as far as people going to functions and stuff at the theater, what about the conflict with emergency vehicles and stuff coming and going from the hospital?
Yeah, so again, we'll take a look at the point where if this becomes a real project, to optimize the location of it. I think the three key things that I'd like to share, right, is that this type of auditorium appears that it can fit on Lakeview without you having to do major demolition. And then there are other areas it could go that could, you know, like you could in fact, if you had to, move some of these things around, right? If you had to. We could look at alternative locations for it, but the key thing is that it could fit. And the very important thing is that the parking could fit. That is huge, because one of the key things we wanted to make sure is that putting this in this location would not require a new parking structure. So that's another added cost that's very significant. Hey Steve, don't you have your hand up?
Do you have a layout of what number one would look like you provided for Mountain View? No, inside, okay.
Similar.
Just that it fits, okay.
Seems like this.
But no, what I mean is in terms of rehearsal space, is there adequate, you know, you just...
Let me just say this. This is a very, very important building. This is not something to guess at. This needs to be designed. We need to get into the detailed discussion of specifically what you want, and I really don't think it's appropriate right now for us to go to the point where we think we can do the building layout. We've gone very far on the other one just to show a fit test. Really, that's all it is. It's a fit test of the existing. Yes, sorry.
At this location, is that building big enough for 400 seats? And also, is there going to be access to that stage?
400 seats would be tough in this location. We'd have to test that and see about the orientation. Okay, so right now, the implication that it has to look exactly like this is not correct. I mean, there's lots of things we can do to the site to fit the building in and relocate parking, etc. You know, to can be different locations, different
I'm not
orientations.
talking about parking, I'm talking about access to that stage for
Understood.
trucks and-
Yeah, so service access. Yeah. We'll have to study that.
But keep in mind 400 seats.
Well, we're saying 300 minimum, this is 320, so we're way over.
Well, no, we're not. Did you forget what I showed you last week? Okay. But 300 is not near enough for any of the clubs.
So right now, this committee established 300 as a baseline. That's all it is.
They all are different things than theater. You know, that would be like me telling how big to make the pickleball court. I'm outnumbered is what I'm saying. Except for here, and here. But 400 is the minimum.
Mine was a general question along those same lines. What we're looking at in that gray area, is that similar in size to what we'd be looking at Mountain View?
No, it's bigger.
It's bigger. Okay, that's important to know.
It's huge.
So that does indicate, Marlene, that the probability of the number one site on Lakeview will be closer to 400 seats likelihood than you could possibly do at Mountain View under the current plan. Is that correct?
No.
Let me see. So you're saying that the Lakeview option, if pursued, would be 400 seats?
Could
Well, I'm saying it has a higher probability of being closer to 400 seats than the current design at Mountain View. Is that
Correct. That's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Marlene, can you go back to the Mountain View map?
Yeah, so before we do that, can we just talk just in big,
Yeah, somebody's songs, somebody's,
I'm on vibrate.
okay, so just in big numbers, folks, we're talking about 25 to 30 million, okay, for performing arts. And I don't have the number yet, but just so you understand, that's about what we're talking. And it's significantly less, obviously, in the renovated space. Okay? So you want to go back? Did you go back one? You want to go back one?
there's a lot of space not being used here. Yeah. For instance, if number 2 was moved way down to the corner, I think, Paul, you said that picnic area isn't used much?
No, it's never used.
Okay, so if that was moved down, and then we have all that open pool concrete space there.
Yes.
If that theater was turned, we could have a much bigger theater there, if we start over.
It's just an orientation.
Right, but I'm saying, we're not limited to 300, we're limited to 320 seats in this building.
We're not.
Well, I'm not saying 320 is the magic number. We were given the criteria of 300 seats. That's what led to this. And so if you want us to see what we can fit in there more and what would have to be done to fit more, we can do that. But we did a quick fit test for 300, and that's where we got there.
I'm kind of looking at this from the drawings we had from the last architectural drawings that we had. And other than 3, 5, 6, and 7, everything's been changed on the other drawings.
Are you talking about this study that was done?
Yeah.
This one?
No, I'm talking the drawings that we had from the last architect.
Oh, that was a new building.
Yeah, it was a new building.
That was a new building. Yeah, new building, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a lot of, even where the, you said could be a construction site for equipment and stuff, we've got a lot of space out here that we're not using that. I would think we'd use better if we weren't using it.
So part of it is we can adjust the overall, what we were, our understanding was to establish kind of what would be a cost-effective initial investment that still allow for other zoning changes. And so what would actually fit on this site. So again, the other thing that I want to be very clear about, the final site would come after we've done the detailed programming of every space that's required for your project. And that might change some things here significantly. This is really good to show you proportionally, based on what we're showing right now, proportionally how it fits. And the nice thing is that there is some flexibility, so we can adjust and have flexibility. We do need to have that actual design preliminary programming and do the schematics and then appropriately locate it. I would not ever say that this is defining where everything goes necessarily, except that the only thing regarding this is that the budgeting for this would allow for an assumption that there is major renovation to retain the existing building. And so what does that mean? And does that mean that we find a way to do some more significant additions? And what does that mean? Does that mean that this building has to in fact be moved down here so there's more separation? Those are not deal killers in terms of this option because there is some flexibility. It's not stuffed so full that you have to do it this way to potentially do what you want to do. You could add, another 20,000 square feet and not ruin the actual fit of the overall site. So this is really to kind of give you a sense of scale, of potential, of what could be there. This is by no means a final plan that you say, okay, here's the site plan. We're good. Because there is not enough information on each particular project that will allow that to be final. Yes.
So I think what we're struggling with as a committee is when we're looking at that spot you're showing in Lakeview and the fact that it could potentially be larger. But in Lakeview, we're looking at a brand new build. Here, we're looking at a renovation or potentially a brand new build, either one. but it's all down to budget. I mean, or even an expansion of that, working within what you have. I mean, it's just hard to, it's hard to throw Lakeview in and say, oh yeah, we can do this at Lakeview, but Lakeview is a whole new, brand new build and a whole different budget than what we're looking at here.
So there was such a range of numbers you were talking about before, okay? So is the Mountain View budget in any way established? Is it in the 30, 50, 80?
27.
Yeah.
That's the number that we've hired in the past, but that doesn't, yeah.
When you say it doesn't, I mean, it's not 60.
No, absolutely
Okay.
not.
So it's around 30, is that
Right.
fair?
We don't have the option to do this here and then also do Lakeview.
You can't do
Needs
both
to
for
be
30,000.
one or the other, obviously. So- You're hired! You're hired.
You win. Where do we sign?
That's like the only thing you guys really heard that I
Somebody got this down?
Yeah.
Get her a contract right now.
Okay, I have a comment. I've actually lost sleep over this. We have Mountain View, which right now is in horrible shape. It's the oldest building, it doesn't look good, and it's in the original part of Sun City. It's phase 1. I'm real tired of hearing about phase 2 and phase 3 when they wouldn't exist if phase 1 wasn't done and successful. I don't want to see that money that we've got, whatever it is, taken out of Mountain View and put in Lakeview, because this will look like a bigger dome.
So let me say
All
something.
they would need to do in that case is rent some fencing and block this off and put it on the tour. This is Sun City's dome.
I have to piggyback off this, because I had emailed John about this a while ago. I feel like phase 1, we have such a negative reputation. I love my street. I mean, we have a beautiful street. We're right by the golf course. But yet people act like, oh my gosh, phase 1, there's nothing in phase 1. You live in phase 1, you gotta be in phase 2. We've got the lake, we've got the indoor pool, we've got the Bell Fitness Center. Phase 1 really doesn't have a lot going for it, which is why I wanted to see the Performing Arts Center stay in phase 1. Why? To get people to cross Grand and come down to phase 1.
It belongs in Mountain View. That's historically where it was. It's part of our history. It needs to be there.
Okay, so then I think that,
Marlene, can you answer?
And we don't need to rip up the one green area we have in Sun City with mature trees and grass.
We're not talking about that.
okay, wait a second. Are we talking about Mountain View or Lakeview?
No, Lakeview. We
Okay.
don't need to rip up that park that we have there.
I'm not talking about ripping up that park.
You would if you put the theater there.
In the corner.
That's,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
not the other part, but the one in front.
Okay, all right, so yes.
Okay. Weeks ago, we discussed as a committee that the major decision we needed to decide was where the Performing Arts Center would be.
That's correct.
Mountain View or Lakeview. This presentation shows that it will fit here. We've got some great presentation and options, potential for it being renovated with theater seating, with space to expand for the needs of the club. I think you, yourself, Bill, prefer to remain at Mountain View because it's historically been there. And you mentioned that as well. And I prefer Okay. But on the other hand, fiscal responsibility, I think, given the state of the world, we never know what's going to happen. And I think using something and being smart and renovating it, make it look good though. Yeah. Let's get the wow space. We can still...
Keep it crappy.
Yeah. 30,000? No, that's... Yeah, 30,000. So...
I'm never going to live that
I love it.
Just want to give her the contract.
So I think maybe it's time to vote as a committee.
Let me just say two things if I could. Stacia just helped me understand that right now even this initial seating can do 340 easily. Okay, so if there's some number in there, we can do it. The other thing that's really hard right now in this expedited approach we're doing, folks, is to explain to you how much we can change the appearance and the actual use and the spatial quality of an existing building that looks horrible. Okay? So I am not making this up. This doesn't come from a beginner. This comes from, long practice of really looking at how do we optimize and improve what's there to make it state-of-the-art and wonderful. Not just compromised, but wonderful. Okay? And this structure, though it looks complicated, in fact, is surprisingly simple. Shockingly simple, actually, when I looked at how it's built, okay? So there's very, very kind of easy ways to adjust it, et cetera, make other openings and those kinds of things. So one of the key things, too, that I would suggest is that your decision-making is based on site use. It's not based on, do you like that building? It will not be that building, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, yeah.
I think it could be brilliant here. I think she could do a brilliant job with what's here. It comes down to our budget in the end. I think this is by far the most budget-friendly option we have. I do think if the budget is there, we should expand the footprint as much as we can on the Performing Arts Center to pack as many seats in there as we can. But I think you could do a brilliant job with what you've got.
I was very anti using this building, but I've changed my mind. If this community has spent millions of dollars on the auto shop, just $100,000 recently in the clay room, Lord only knows how many $1 million on golf. And you know what we've spent on performing arts? Zero.
We won't even mention the building we're sitting in.
This needs to be a performing arts center that the players and any other group and any person in this city would be proud of. It doesn't need to be cheapened in any way. And if it takes $25 million to build this thing, we need to build it.
30,000 would be better.
30,000. Then we could build two.
Writing that down.
Okay, is that he's going to pay me to come back for the next meeting, 30,000?
You're invited.
We're putting a flagpole on the top.
We're not cheap, we'll let you raise it to 60,000.
And we'll give you a $20,000 tip.
This is unrecorded. So we're
She's the one who's...
Okay, so, yes.
I just wondered, do you have any pictures of, you showed one in one of your very first displays of a glass building that you had renovated, something. If you could dig up a few photos to show the folks how it could go from the way it looks now, how you envision it, or is that beyond your scope?
We trust you.
Yes, so I did show a couple examples really quickly. And so just so you understand, most of my work is not big budget, but we are very highly recognized for our design. And so that's usually a dichotomy, right? It's not usually common. But what's key is two things. One is really early establishing what are the fundamental needs. We don't start doing building designs before we know exactly kind of what you want, what are the priorities, and what should be done. It sounds really simple, but in fact, it's often not done. People are, preconceiving, I'm going to do this kind of shape and this kind of form. You like it? Well, it looks great. But it might have nothing to do with what's realistic, so that's number one. Number two is real cost consulting early, where we really know kind of what is the overall picture. So to answer your question, I'm happy to show you other pictures, and I can do that for you. We have a number of those. Even for projects that are not big budget, things that you think you have to build a traditional building, I guarantee you that building did not have to look like it does, that existing building that you have. Okay, so it's unfortunate. It is like a wall to the community. It's unfortunate, but that doesn't have to stay that way. Okay? So do you want me to just send you a couple things? Is that what you want me to do? You have it? Oh.
Yeah.
Is it on your webpage? Paul could possibly bring it up. I don't know.
Yeah, I can send you some things. But anyway, it's, like I said, it's not by chance. It's a way of working. And the other thing I can, whether it's compelling or not, but, one of the best things we can do is use what we can and see how we can optimize it. And the second thing also is, as we're doing this building, we're going to look at energy use, we're going to look at water, we're going to look at systems efficiency. And so I would recommend that entire system is changed, because I'm sure it's extremely inefficient, for instance. And that'll be part of what we look at for you. So it's not just first cost, it's an owner's long-term cost. This is not being flipped. This is something that's going to be kept for a long time. So we also look at long-term maintenance of materials. One of the buildings we just got recognized for absolutely zero additional funding provided, but is completely clad in a material that requires zero maintenance. Zero. Zero repainting, zero cleaning, zero anything. Now, it's hard to define the cost that is eliminated when you have a building that requires no maintenance to stay looking fantastic.
That's hard to believe, it's hard to picture.
Yes, and it's a recycled cladding, and it's got a certain assembly, and I can bore you with the reasons, but there are materials like that out here that are important for you long term. So for us, it's not just the initial, but it's just how can this be a really good element for you, the long-term owners, minimize maintenance, maximize efficiency and use. Okay, so I'll send a couple project examples. Who should I send that to? To you? Okay.
I think it might be, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's a project we did, in Mesa that's, small masonry buildings, all closed in, a few small windows, and we made 2 gigantic openings. That's the one we showed you, right? And so what I was trying to demonstrate to you is we're not talking about things where the structure is still the same. It's the idea that we understand with our engineers how we can make those openings, brace them, completely open it up, and it's like a new building. It's nothing like nobody would think it was the existing building. And it's just about having that orientation to think about like how we can do that spatially, appearance-wise, and use-wise. Okay? Okay, so then can we talk about completing? So this is as far as we're gonna go right now. Everybody understands what's been shown in terms of, a fit, a potential site occupancy that can be. It's not final, and you're not voting on that site plan. Okay, you're voting on a potential overall massing and density of use, that's it. Okay? I guarantee you that would not be the final site plan. Okay, that's important. But at least now, you have a sense, right, about what's possible, I hope, right? And what the trade-offs could be. So then, what we're gonna do, is my understanding is, we'll just do an overall kind of development budget, okay, and send it over, and then you'll establish at what time that's going to the board, is that correct?
Yes, that's scheduled. Yeah. A rough schedule.
So we're not going to vote on location, we're just going to wait for the cost.
That's correct. But then we want to make sure that we had a couple weeks after that, so we have discussion and have time for iteration, which is what she said. We don't want to lock into anything right away. So we have some time to do that. So that concludes what we have for this afternoon. I think it was a wonderful discussion. And we're going to meet again next week. So the co-chair is going to get together and work on an agenda and things that we'll talk about next week. And we'll send that out, but we'll hope to see you then. Thank you.
And there are cookies on the way out.
Take a cookie on the way out.
This is a copy written production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.